States
49, 50, and 51.
States exhibits 49, 50, and 51 are admitted into evidence without objection. All right, anything from the defense before we bring the jury in?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring the jury in. Gentlemen, welcome back. We're ready to resume the trial of the case. However, before we proceed, I need to let you know that over the break, States exhibits 49, 50, and 51 were admitted into evidence without objection. All right, State, make sure you have your own notepads, no one else's notepads. State can call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Donna Sue Soles.
Raise your right hand and then place your left hand on the Bible. You can look there. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Just right there, watch your step. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Donna Sue Soles, S-O-L-E-S.
Now, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in today, Ms. Soles. You don't have to give us your address, but do you live in Horry County in this general area?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have family in the area?
My whole family.
Are you familiar with an area called Pitt's Landing?
All my life.
And I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 51. And just a minute on that. Do you recognize that area?
Yes.
Is that the Pitt's Landing area?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd ask that this be published to the jury.
And what exhibit?
51, Your Honor.
All right.
Let me shrink it a little bit. So, and it's on the same on all three screens. So is this the area that we refer to as Pitt's Landing?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you can just stand up and point out on that map where Pitt's Landing is. So that little kind of bare area. Okay, thank you very much. Do you recall going to that area the night of November 7th of 2020 into November 8th?
I do.
And what was it about that date that makes it, what's the first thing about that date that makes it stick out in your mind?
My grandma passed away that day, and we went to the funeral. And, well, we always go catfishing down there, like, since we were kids. But we left the funeral that day and up on 378 and come back. And my little brother was with me, and he asked if we want to ride down there and check it out. So we did. And then us not living far from there, we went to the house and got our boats, and we went back down there. Just kind of clear heads for today.
And when you went there, were you going to set out catfish lines?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is something that you taught me when the first time we met. So can you tell the jury, what do you do when you set catfish lines?
You set bush hooks. Like, you kind of tie the lines to the tree and put whatever you can fish with on there, and then you go throughout the night and check them.
So are you actually in a boat on the river when you're doing this?
Yes.
Okay. So did something happen that night as you were setting catfish lines or checking catfish lines that brings you to court today?
Yeah, I came to the third one, and the smell. Like, when we went to go to set the line, I smelled the smell.
When you say you smell the smell,
It was an awful smell. Like you couldn't bear it. It was, actually I threw up, vomited.
okay. And what did you do once you smelled that?
Well, we knew it had to come from somewhere, and you look around and really didn't see anything. Then it was getting dark then because it was earlier, and so I kind of shined a light, and I saw it looked like a tarp, but it was like on the wood line, and which is where I shined it. And so we went back to the hill and we didn't mess with that one. I went back to the hill and I told Ronald, and Ronald's my little brother, and I said, there's something about that that's not right. Like, I know it's a smell I've never smelled in my life. And I've done a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting in my life, and it's any kind of animal I've ever smelled, it's nothing like it. It had no comparison. And so when we went back to check the lines, and got to the third one, I told him we needed to check and see, just see what exactly that was. And we got closer, and as we got closer, the flies, and it was the smell. We were both throwing up. And so we went on to it, got kind of close up to it, and Kaylee, which was my little brother's girlfriend, she was in the boat with us, and it was her first time catfishing. And so before we went there, my friend Jamie was on his other boat, which was my best friend's husband now. So we got Jamie to come, and Kaylee got on the boat with her before we went back over there to check out and see what it was.
So let me just stop you there for just 1 second. And Your Honor, I neglected one exhibit that I believe will be admitted without objection. State's Exhibit 48.
Any objection?
I don't believe so. They might. Sorry, Your Honor. No objection.
All right, State's Exhibit 48 admitted in evidence.
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 48. Is that what you first saw?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that State's Exhibit 48 be admitted, and it's admitted, that it be published to the jury.
All right.
So is that what
So you can see kind of from looking at it, it looks like a tarp, something of that matter, if you're on the boat out there and you were shining the light.
And then, Your Honor, I would ask that.
And the smell to go along with it, you kind of knew that's where it had to be coming from. So I told Jamie to come and let her on the boat. And then I was scared too, to be honest with you. And the water never scares me. But when I saw that and the smell, I knew it was something that couldn't have been right.
So did you guys get closer?
Yes.
Okay,
And
Your Honor, I
then
would ask that State's Exhibit 49, which has already been admitted, be published.
All right.
And is that a closer view
yes.
of the tarp? And I think before you said that you noticed quite a bit of insect activity. Did you guys eventually go even closer to that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And what did you do once you got closer?
I have a yellow extendable paddle that I keep in the boat, and I opened it, and Ronald pulled me up to it, and he was back there driving my little boat at the time. But I got up there, I took that paddle, and I kind of, because of course I wasn't going to touch it with my hand, I didn't know, but the smell was so bad in between you getting sick and doing it, but it was so bad, I couldn't take it on. The closer we got, the more sick I got, and then he got sick too. So he was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I was like, well, we got to figure out what it is. So we did leave, and we went back to the hill, and we had a fire. Because, you go throughout the night checking these hooks. And Ronald, I don't drink, but Ronald does drink, and he had a couple of shots of Fireball, and I was sitting on the tailgate of the truck, and he said, "Sis, what is it?" And I said, "Ronald, you're not gonna, like, you've been drinking. You're gonna think I'm crazy if I tell you this." And I was like, "Something's
Your
nagging."
Honor, Jackson, she's just right on about hearsay.
Okay, sustained, can't get into what anybody else said. Let's see here, be crossing.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I was
So-
explaining that. I was telling him, and that's why we went back. And I was like, something's nagging me and telling me something ain't right about it. Like, we need to go check it out.
So
So-
based on that, did you then get even closer?
Yes, then when we went back, I took the paddle and put to, like, if you're looking at it, the left side.
Okay, and Your Honor, if I publish previously admitted State's Exhibit 50.
All right.
And so I'm sorry, did you get that close?
Yes.
Okay. And you were talking about a yellow extendable paddle. What did you do?
I took the left-hand side of it and kind of like went to pick it up, and like the water, it was slippery, like, because like it had, whatever it was had been there, and the paddle slipped, and then I put it back and I tried to pick it up, but it was kind of heavy. So Ronald come up and my little brother again, and he held me, and when we did it, it was around like this part of the legs.
Okay, I'm sorry. And I just have to describe it for the record. Okay, she's pointing here, so
And-
kind of around the knees.
So yeah, like the bottom part is what it looked like, and but there was a ratchet strap around it, around like the side. But when we pulled it up more, and then so I said, I didn't know what it really was, but it looked like it could have been something. I thought a body. But then I went to the other side, and like you couldn't see the round part in the water. But again, I couldn't pick it up by myself because it had been there, and I knew there was weight to it, and it was kind of scary. And so Ronald helped me once again, and we put the paddle and did it, and it was around the head. Like you could actually see the round part through the tarp.
Now, you talked about seeing a ratchet strap. Did you ever see anything attached to the ratchet
Cinder
strap?
blocks.
A cinder block? Okay. In addition to kind of trying to lift up both ends, did you do anything else to determine what was inside the tarp? Did you have a knife with you?
Yes, when we saw the round part, Ronald said we need to call, and I said, yeah, we do, but you don't, if you call them and say you found a body or you didn't really know what it was, I was like, there's going to be so many people out here. And again, it kept bothering me. I was like, we got to, he's like, let's just make sure. So being that the head was on that side, or what we thought was the head by the circle part, I said, Ronald, you're going to cut like towards the top. You could tell it was a cypress stump. Like we go fishing out there all the time. So whatever it was caught up on, it looked like part of that cypress stump. And he made the first slot, and you could, like the paddle and the light from the one I had a light on my head, it kind of looked like the jeans in the maybe muscle, like. So it made me think it had been there a while, but then you couldn't exactly know for sure that's what it was.
Did you cut another spot on
Yes, on up. I said, don't cut, like, we're not going to cut like closer to the head, like, because you don't want to see that. Like, that's enough to live with. And you could see like the shirt and like the rib cage.
Nothing further at this time. I believe Mr. Case Britton will be questioning you, so just please answer any questions he has.
I'm so sorry that you had to be the one that someone pulled us out. I'm actually sorry about your funeral earlier that afternoon. You said that you were out there early evening?
Yeah, well, catfishing, you set lines like an hour before dark. And, or you set the hooks, and then you go throughout and just check them, because you gotta have them back up an hour before daylight.
Okay, so look, I'll be honest with you. I've got no idea about
Okay.
catfishing. Last thing I know about catfishing, you stick it
Well,
on
no,
it,
you're trying to
like,
get the
"Oh!"
time, you're trying to get the timeline, you
Well, I'm
know,
trying to
like,
figure
because
out-
it was later on that night.
Later on that evening.
But you go and you set them, and that's
I
what,
would ask that.
Only one can talk at a time. We've got a court reporter that has to
Oh,
take
okay.
everything down. All right? So ask your question and then allow her to answer.
Yes, sir, thank you. Correct. I'm just trying to establish a roundabout timeline.
right,
You said you were at a funeral earlier.
yeah, my grandma.
And I apologize about that. We just lost our grandfather a couple months ago. Daytime, 2:00 type funeral
Yeah, it was earlier that day.
earlier that day. Okay. So y'all are going around and did you say your son, your stepson?
No, my little brother.
Little brother. Okay, I'm sorry. Just want to go clear his head. Get out on the water.
Well, we always go catfishing down there,
Yeah,
and I mean, it's like every other weekend thing. And on the way back, we was like, let's go down there and check it out and see how the water is. And then we had buried grandma, so it was like, that's perfect time. So we ran to the house. Like I said, we don't live far from there, so we hooked to the boats and went back.
Great place to get out, clear your head on the water. Do you have firsthand knowledge how that tarp got there?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right? Good, right?
No, Your Honor, I would ask that Ms. Soles be released from her subpoena.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, you're free to go. Thank you very much. State can call you next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Captain Heather Wilson.
Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Could you just state your name and then spell your last name for the court?
Heather Wilson, Wilson.
Sorry, I'm just trying to gather some of the exhibits so I'm not walking back and forth quite as much. May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Captain Wilson. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Where do you work?
Horry County Police.
How long have you worked there?
For, since 2005. Sorry, it's been so long I almost forgot.
Do you have any prior law enforcement or military experience before joining Horry County Police Department?
Yes, I worked for Myrtle Beach for about 9 months, and prior to that I worked in Danville, Virginia as a police officer in Danville City Police Department.
What is your current assignment?
Currently, I am a captain, and I am assigned to the 2nd Precinct, which is also referred to as the South Precinct, and that is in the Socastee Burgess area of the county.
What was your assignment before that?
So before I was promoted to captain, I was the supervisor in the crime scene division.
Did you hold that position both as a lieutenant, since you were just promoted to captain?
Yeah, so it would probably be easier if I just So I spent almost 10 years in crime scene as a detective, and then went to homicide division and worked as a detective, was promoted to sergeant, worked on patrol, and then came back to the crime scene division as a sergeant. And then ultimately I was promoted to a lieutenant in the a lieutenant in the crime scene section, where I stayed until I was promoted to captain.
Thank you. That was much better worded than my question. So both as the sergeant and the lieutenant in crime scene, what types of responsibilities did you have?
So ultimately, the responsibilities were the same. As far as overseeing the crime scene division, I would also go and help or assist with scenes. I would take on my own scenes. I would help with training the new crime scene investigators that would come in, reviewing reports, fingerprints, processing of evidence, ordering, and then just normal business type things that you would think in any job.
If I'm doing my math in your timeline correctly, you were working in the crime scene unit in October, November of 2020?
Yes.
Okay. As part of your rotation in the crime scene unit, did you become involved in sort of globally the missing persons that turned into a homicide of Gregory Rice?
I did.
Directing your attention specifically to November 8th of 2020, did you respond to a call for service regarding human remains that had been found in the Little PD River?
Yes, I did.
Did any other crime scene investigators go with you?
Yes, at that time, we had another crime scene investigator that I was training. He was brand new, and he responded as well.
Great. Were you familiar with that location prior to responding this night?
Yes.
So, if we could, Your Honor, 51 has already been admitted and published. I'd just like to show that again. Is that the area to which you responded?
Yes, it is.
When you first got there, can you just describe what you saw? Were there other people there? What was sort of going on?
There were other people there. Marion County Sheriff's Office was there. And ultimately, I wasn't sure exactly where the possible remains were located. So I got in a boat with DNR to go around to view. Because as you can tell, this line, it shows a line between Horry County and Marion County. So we were trying to figure out what jurisdiction was going to be taking over the case.
Okay, so that's the line that's going through the river. That's the county boundary?
Yes, it is.
How, you said you got into a boat and went out.
Yeah, that's fine. I remember making it.
Your Honor, I believe State's Exhibit 148 will be admitted without objection.
That's correct.
All right, State's Exhibit 148, admitted into evidence without objection.
Showing you State's Exhibit 148, is that actually a photo of you going out towards the body?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that Exhibit 148 be published.
All right.
And I believe, who's that in the boat?
Wearing the orange, that's me. And then the one with the mask is a DNR officer, and I don't remember what his name is.
So there were several agencies who responded out to this call.
Yes, there were.
How was it decided who would, I'm jumping ahead, was that object eventually retrieved from the cypress stump?
Yes, it was.
How was it decided who would go out there to make that retrieval?
So the Marion County deputies ended up talking to the Marion County Sheriff, who said, Horry County crime scene is already here, So will they mind go ahead and processing the scene for us? Usually smaller agencies like Marion County would call in SLED to come and work cases, or an agency around them that had the resources to assist. So ultimately, it was decided that we would assist with the processing of the evidence. And like I said, I did go out with DNR to see what we have, because again, they're trying to describe it to me, but I got to be able to see it so I know what resources to get, which then our fire department was called in to bring their boat so that we could utilize their boat to pull the victim out of the water.
Can you describe what you saw as you approached this object in the river?
So the first time when I went out, I just saw the tarp, as you can probably see in the last photo you just looked at. It looked like a gray tarp, and that's what you could see floating at the time. Yes, thank you. So that is exactly what I saw the very first time that I went out. And then I began to see more as I went over the second time. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but the second time when I went out with DNR, I was in this little John boat, and the other investigator was in the fire department boat. And then I could see that it was a person as they were pulling the tarp and the human remains out of the water.
Now, these have already been admitted and published. So I'm showing you States Exhibits 48, 49, and 50.
Yes,
Okay. And so did you recognize these photos?
I do.
Okay. And did you get as close as the photo in States Exhibit 50?
I did, yes.
Okay. So if we could put up States Exhibit 50 again. So I believe you said that the fire department boat was used?
To retrieve? Yes, to retrieve, yes.
Were you present in that area when the body was retrieved?
Yes, the DNR officer and I were still kind of perched over at that same tree that you saw in the last photo. And that was just because there's no way that we were going to be able to pull the victim onto the little John boat without flipping that boat. So we were still there so that I could visually see and direct the new investigator on what to do.
What did you see as the fire department was pulling the body out of the river?
I could see parts of a human body. I could see additional tarp. I remember them saying it's hung on something and them trying to figure out why they couldn't load the victim onto the boat. And then ultimately they found ropes, and it was connected to cinder blocks. So they just kept pulling and pulling, and were finally able to get the cinder blocks as well on the boat.
Okay, thank you. Court's indulgence. So I'm going to send no objection to 52. Okay. Your Honor, the state would move to admit States Exhibit 52 and 54. I believe that will be without objection.
Without objection.
All right, States Exhibits 52 and 54 admitted into evidence without objection.
So if you could look at States Exhibits 52 and 54 and tell me if that accurately reflects, before we publish it, accurately reflects what you saw.
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask that they be published.
All right.
So let's start with Exhibit 52. Can you describe what we're seeing in State's Exhibit 52?
Yes, so the blue tarp, I believe that's probably one of the firefighters' arms that you're seeing. And then the blue tarp is what the firefighters use to put down on the front of the boat so that they can pull the victim up onto the boat. And the gray tarp is what the victim was in. And then you can see it's like a green tie strap is what I would refer to it as. And you should also be able to see in the corner up here, it's harder to tell in the photo, but in person you could tell that it was a human being.
And then if we can go to State's Exhibit 54.
And this is the rope that I was referring to, and the cinder block that was attached and wrapped around the victim.
After the body was brought to shore, can you give us a more full description of sort of how the body was wrapped?
Yes, so as the fire department was pulling the victim onto the boat, the victim moved a little in the wrapped tarp because of the weight of the cinder block. And they weren't prepared for a cinder block. They were just thinking that it was just somebody wrapped in a tarp. So the victim was moved a little when they pulled him up. But then when we got to shore, so the fire department boat with the victim, and then myself and the DNR officer followed behind. We got to shore, and then we were able to take photos of the victim who was wrapped in the tarp and then wrapped in a couple of blankets. He was dressed, and there were zip ties and the rope that you saw, as well as that brick.
Where before you removed the tarp, where did you see the zip ties?
On the outside of the tarp, if I remember correctly. I would have to look back.
Okay. And eventually was the tarp taken off of him?
It was.
Can you tell us what you saw?
Like, for the victim?
Yes.
So the victim was wearing a hooded sweatshirt, pants, shoes. There was a pack of opened cigarettes in his pocket, a lighter in his pocket. The victim was badly decomposed, so it almost looked like he was somewhat mummified. And it was hard to tell, but there did look like there was a couple of small holes in his shirt. And but again, if someone is in water for a long period of time, it would be difficult to see small wounds.
Was there were you able to see a lot of blood?
No.
Did that surprise you?
No, it didn't, because again, there was no gaping wound or a head laceration, or there was no large holes, so you wouldn't really see a lot of blood. Even if there was a large hole, you wouldn't expect to see a lot of blood if someone was submerged in water for a while.
Did you or the other crime scene investigator who was with you take photos of the tarp once the victim was removed?
Yes, we did.
Your Honor, the state would ask to admit Exhibit 55, I believe is without objection.
Any objection?
Yes, sir, Your Honor, without objection.
State's Exhibit 55, admitted in evidence without objection.
Is that a photo of the tarp after the victim was removed?
It is.
Your Honor, I would ask that this be published.
All right.
55. So what, if anything, did you notice about the tarp, or can you just describe what we're seeing?
So the tarp was very sandy from being in the water and then also pulling them onto shore. And the zip ties are at both ends of the tarp. So you can't really see it in this photo, but at the top end, there's a zip tie, just like there is on the bottom. And you can see the extra part of the zip tie on the bottom, right next to the eyelets.
Did you or other investigators collect that tarp?
Yes, we did.
What did you do with it?
So everything that was collected right then, I'll go back. It was decided that this was going to be Marion County's case. At the time, we didn't know who the male was that was deceased. So Marion County was taking the case. We collected everything and signed it over to Marion County Sheriff's Office. Ultimately, after the autopsy and we were able to determine who the victim was, we then went back and took custody of all of those items and brought them back to the Horry County Police Department.
I'm going to approach with State's Exhibit 131. Do you recognize what this is?
I do.
What is it?
So the box is titled Gray Tarp from Victim on Scene. And this is my handwriting, and this is how it was ultimately packaged. Do you want to open it?
Yeah. Your Honor, with the court's permission, since it's not published yet, may I just walk around the witness stand so she can open it?
May I stand, Your Honor?
You can just, if you recognize it from there.
Yes, I do.
Preston, do you want to, before I publish it, or ask that it be published?
Yeah, Your Honor. Yeah.
No objection. Your Honor, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Was 131 admitted? I would ask that 131 be admitted. I believe it's without objection. Sorry. And then I would ask that it be published.
Objection.
No objection.
I
Sorry.
No, thank you.
131 admitted into evidence without objection.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. And is the tarp wrapped in, I guess, protective plastic?
It is.
And why is that?
Due to, it's a biohazard, obviously, because someone that was deceased was inside the tarp, which is inside the biohazard bag.
Okay, so if you could just lift up the wrapped tarp and explain how you recognize that it is the tarp that was recovered that day.
So it is labeled with the case number and the description that it is a gray tarp. Every piece of evidence has a tag, which is here, this white tag. It feels like a tarp. It's my handwriting. It's sealed on the back with the evidence seal with the date and my initials. Inside the box with my handwriting, the date, and the initials.
Thank you, I'll take that. You mentioned that there were zip ties on either end of the tarp.
There were,
Were those also recovered?
yes,
And same thing, they went initially to Marion County and then back to Horry County?
yes,
And Your Honor, I
Without
believe
getting-
there's no objection to the admission of State's Exhibit 127 and 128.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibit 127, 128, admitted into evidence without objection.
Are those the zip ties that were removed from the tarp?
yes.
Your Honor, I would ask that these be published.
All right.
And then showing, I believe you said when the tarp was sort of unwrapped, that the remains were wrapped in other material?
Yes. A couple of blankets.
No objection to that, ma'am?
Your Honor, I would move for admission of State's Exhibits 129 and 130 without objection, I believe.
Any objection?
No, sir.
State's Exhibits 129 and 130, admitted into evidence without objection.
And if you could look at those and tell me if those were the blankets or the sheets that were recovered from the victim's body.
Yes.
And again, how do you recognize that?
So they have the labels up here at the top. Like I was saying, every piece of evidence has a label. But I just recognize it from collecting it and packaging it.
Your Honor, I would ask that Exhibits 129 and 130 be published.
All right.
Okay, and then you also, get my work back. You also talked about, I know, I didn't know this morning. There, a cinder block that had been secured around the victim.
Yes.
Was that seized and taken into first Marion County and then Horry County evidence?
Yes, that's correct.
No objection.
Do you want to know?
I got a bad back.
Do you want to know?
Oh, sure, I'll come here.
Let me grab it.
What number is that?
36, Your Honor.
Would you like me to hear? I know you're talking to me. You're tougher than me, sir.
Your Honor, I believe that it's being admitted without objection.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 36, admitted into evidence without objection.
And again, Your Honor, with your permission, we'll go up so that Captain Wilson can open it. you can take that out and just tell me if that is the cinder block that was recovered from the victim. And if so, Your Honor, I'd ask that it be published.
All right.
This is,
Okay, so if you can, I'm making you carry it now, so if
Okay.
you can just kind of open up the box and show.
Your Honor, may I
Oh,
walk back?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, that's exhibit 56. 56, not
56?
56, not 36.
State's Exhibit 56, not 36, is admitted in evidence.
Your Honor, may I walk down with it? Thank you. There you go. Cinder block. Everyone can see that?
I'll take the whole box back. But
Well, tell me where you want this one.
can you put it back on that box?
And then put it
And then
on.
put it on the table, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Captain. Did your involvement in this case continue after the recovery of, well, let me back up. Were those remains eventually identified as the remains of Gregory Rice?
They were.
Did your involvement in the case continue to include a search or a processing of the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home?
Yes, it did.
At the time that you did that search, did Horry County have any definitive information on where a crime scene might be?
No.
Do you, and if you don't, that's fine, do you know what directed attention to the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home?
I probably did then, but I don't remember now what actually directed us in that direction.
And basically, as crime scene, you kind of go where they ask you to go and process the scene.
Correct.
So did you, on November 13th of 2020, participate in the execution of a search warrant at the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home?
Yes, I did.
What were you looking for there?
So ultimately, we were looking for any type of physical evidence that would suggest an assault occurred there. So like cleaned up blood, body fluids, any evidence of a shooting, investigation, just to see if something possibly occurred there. So we were looking for body fluids, blood evidence, firearm casings, projectiles, that type of stuff.
Were you ever able to definitively determine that there was a crime scene there?
No.
You said that you were aware that the remains had been identified as Greg Rice. Did you ever learn how he had been killed?
Yes, we were advised that he had been shot during autopsy. There were multiple projectiles found in the victim's body that were collected.
Were those 22 caliber bullets?
I believe so.
In your, I guess it'll be about almost 26 years of law enforcement, have you received training at each one of your departments?
Yes, I have.
Has that training included training on firearms?
Yes.
Have you in fact carried a firearm as part of your profession for the last, what did I just say, 29 years?
26.
26. Yeah.
Yes, I have.
So are you familiar with different types of weapons and different calibers of weapons?
Yes, I am.
What, if any, significance did it have to you that the victim had been shot with a 22 caliber firearm?
Objection, Your Honor. This is
speculative. I don't understand what this is. Hey, I don't understand the question.
I'm sorry, could you
I'll
repeat
it.
that?
Certainly. Based on your years of experience, what, if any, significance did it have to you that the victim had been shot with multiple times with a .22 caliber firearm?
So a .22 caliber would leave a very small wound or a small hole, regardless of what the bullet is penetrating. Therefore, it would be more difficult to see.
I don't have to object again now that I know where the answer is headed. She's trying to qualify her as some kind of expert, it appears, in forensics. She didn't do the autopsy to learn. She was trying to skip around that and have her testify about bullet holes and what a bullet hole would leave. It's not her area of expertise. Thank you, Your Honor.
You can continue your answer. I believe you were saying that it would be smaller holes, smaller wounds.
Yes. So with over 15 years experience in crime scene, I have worked a lot of deaths, unfortunately, due to homicide and sometimes suicide. So on top of the training and the hands-on experience, I can attest that a .22 caliber firearm would leave a very small hole in regardless of what it is impacting. So that made sense to me in us not really being able to see large holes on the victim when we recovered him from the river that day. So that made sense to me. Plus, it would make sense to me for maybe someone not hearing a assault that occurred with the victim.
Yes, Your Honor.
Just saying, unless she's a ballistics expert, I'll strike that last statement.
But if I can, I'll rephrase a question.
All right.
Counsel has asked a number of other law enforcement witnesses if there were any reports of shots fired on the night that Greg Rice was killed. Based on your experience with different handguns or firearms, would the caliber that was used have any effect on that?
Sustained.
Okay. In your experience, you said that you've processed a number of scenes, whether they're homicides or suicides, in your 20-plus year career. How many cases involving shootings have you responded to or participated in?
Hundreds.
For each one of those cases, has there always been a call from anyone regarding shots being fired?
No.
Nothing further. I'm gathering Mr. Preston Burton will be asking questions.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. In crime scene, that's what you are typically involved in, crime scene?
I was at this time, yes.
Okay. What involvement do y'all have with 911 calls and reports? You're not getting that in part of the investigation, are you?
What do you mean?
Well, you're not getting information about whether or not there was a call from a neighbor about hearing somebody shoot a gun 5 times. Are you?
So usually when we are investigating a crime, we do what's called a round table. And so the crime scene investigator gets with the detective and then the supervisors, and everybody discusses the case as to how the call came in, what happened before, what the detective has, what the crime scene investigator has found, so on and so forth.
Okay. And so let's answer me this. Where is the crime scene? Where is the crime scene?
I don't know, sir. I can't tell you where the crime scene is.
I'm sorry.
Objection, Your Honor.
Where's
What?
The address,
I
quite
apologize.
frankly.
Where's the crime scene?
I can only tell you where the victim was found.
Okay. So You can't tell us as we sit here today, in a murder trial, where the crime scene was.
Are you asking me the question again? I'm
I
sorry.
am.
Okay. No, I cannot tell you exactly where the crime scene was. That is correct.
Can you tell me, what, did you investigate any other potential crime scenes in this case?
In regard to this victim,
That's correct?
so we did search his residence
That's right.
and
No,
his.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, I was just saying.
You did?
You go ahead.
And that was on October 16th, right?
Yes, that is before he was found.
Okay. And that was 2 weeks, right? About 2 weeks after the date of death?
So October the 16th is when I first learned that he was reported as a missing person. And they asked us to come and search his house. When I say they, the detectives asked crime scene to come and assist.
Okay. And you did that, right?
We did.
Okay. And to do that, did you park your car in the parking lot anywhere around the apartment?
Yes,
Did you get out of your car?
yes,
Did you walk to the apartment?
yes,
Did you take the sidewalk?
yes.
And when you did any of that, you seem very thorough. When you did any of that, did you find any shell casings?
No,
Did you see any blood stains?
no,
2 weeks later, did anybody approach you and say, ho, 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 we're glad you're here because we heard some gunfire on October 2nd?
I don't have that information. I don't know.
Nobody approached you, though? No neighbors approached you?
No,
All of these items that have been identified in your round table, did it ever get to you? Those were all items that Chris Dontell purchased?
yes,
Okay. He went to Lowe's by himself and got the center block, right?
yes.
He got the zip tie.
I don't remember everything that he purchased, but I do know that that was mentioned during our round table.
That's right, the round table they told you he got the center block, he got the tarp, and he got the zip tie and a Pepsi. Is that right?
Like I said, I don't know exactly what he purchased, but I do remember there being video of him at the store purchasing several items.
Okay. And when you were investigating Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, did you lift any fingerprints that were relevant to this case?
I don't recall lifting any fingerprints.
No fingerprints. Okay. How about any relevant footprints?
No,
Did you lift any? Did you do any analysis for Meagan Jackson? You involved in that? Did you see any? Did you try to lift any fingerprints from Meagan Jackson?
no, I did not.
Did you do that at Greg Rice's apartment?
For fingerprints?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I did not.
Did you get any footprints of Meagan Jackson at Greg Rice's apartment?
We didn't look for footprints. We did spray the apartment.
Oh, that's right. Did y'all get a sample, like a little sample for Greg Rice's DNA?
Like his hair brush and his toothbrush, yes.
Okay. And why would you collect that evidence?
Objection, Your Honor. Captain Wilson is actually not the investigator who collected those items.
But if she knows why it was collected, I'll allow it.
So like I was saying, he was reported missing at the beginning of October, and then October 16th when we were doing the search of his residence. Because he had been missing for that long, we wanted to have something with his DNA to have as a standard so that we could send a sled in the event he were found.
And that was in fact done, correct?
Yes.
And when you, at one of your roundtables, did you get to hear that blood was found on the shoe of Chris Dontell? Isn't that right?
Yes.
But not Meagan Jackson.
Like not her shoes?
Not anything related to Meagan Jackson. No article of clothing of hers had any of Greg Rice's blood on it. Is that correct?
As far as I know.
As far as you know. Well, we got it on the top of Chris Dontell's shoe and the bottom. Isn't that right?
I don't remember where it was on his shoe, but yes, there was blood on his shoe.
Your Honor, courts and indulgence, please. I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Greg Rice.
Just very briefly, Your Honor. So if, just trying to do my math, Greg Rice is killed on, Greg Rice is killed on October 2nd. The body is recovered, his body is recovered November 7th to 8th, so a little more than a month passes, correct? Am I doing my math right? October
Yeah, I don't know the exact date that he was killed. I just know he was reported missing, I think, around October 4th or 5th, and then we were at his place on the 16th, and then his body was found on November 8th.
Would the passage of time from October 2nd to even October 16th, would that potentially make a crime scene more difficult to find?
Yes, it could very well. Plus, depending on the weapon that is used or how someone dies will depend on how much blood would be present to begin with.
If Gregory Rice was shot down the street from his apartment on the road leading out towards Clay Pond Road, would you expect to find shell casings or blood as you parked your patrol car in the parking lot, got out of your car, walked on the sidewalk, and conducted your search at his apartment if he was killed down the road?
No. And we would have no reason to go down the road searching for that unless the detectives were able to canvass the area and get video surveillance to say like, hey, we saw the victim walking this direction, and then we would go search that area.
If the location where Greg Rice was killed was not learned by investigators until more than 4 years after he was killed, would that affect your ability to collect any physical evidence from a crime scene?
Yes, if it's on the roadway or on the side of the road, just due from traffic going up and down the roadway, and then you have lawnmowers cutting the grass and so on and so forth.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down.
Your Honor, I would ask that Captain Wilson be released from her subpoena.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, you're free to go.
Thank you.
Jake, can you call your next witness?
Your Honor, the state calls Drew Edwards.
Raise your right hand and put your left hand on top. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence trying to give the court in this case be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Yep. My name is Christopher Drew Edwards, Edwards.
Court's indulgence, I'm just trying to. Your Honor, it's my understanding that there will be, and there'll be more exhibits that I will offer through this witness, but States Exhibit 59, 60, and 61, along with Exhibit 149, I believe there's no objection to their admission.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
United States Exhibits 59, 60, 61, and 149 are admitted in evidence.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Detective Edwards,
Yes, ma'am.
where do you work?
I work for the Horry County Police Department.
How long have you worked there?
18 years since October 2006.
What is your current assignment?
I'm currently assigned to the Narcotics and Special Operations Division as a gang investigator
How long have you been in that assignment?
since April of last year.
What was your assignment back in October of 2020?
I was assigned to the violent crime section of our investigations division.
So what types of crimes did you investigate?
We investigated anything from homicides, armed robberies, to overdose deaths.
What types of things did you do during the course of those investigations?
Common things we would do, we'd find witnesses, interview them, canvass areas where the crime occurred to find any video or evidence that we could find.
And that's not a comprehensive list?
No.
When an investigation comes in, how is it assigned to a lead investigator?
So if it's a call out, like something happens in the middle of the night and they need an investigator right away, the on-call person would get it. If it's something that happens over the weekend and it's like a property crime, it would be assigned, the next business day.
And is it common for other investigators to assist the lead investigator with some of these tasks that you have to do?
Yeah. Some of these cases can get very complicated with a lot of work to do, so the work can be split amongst different investigators.
Directing your attention to this case, did you become involved in the investigation into the disappearance and murder of Gregory Rice?
I did.
Were you the lead investigator?
No, ma'am.
Do you know who was?
Detective Susie.
Did you, in fact, however, help Detective Susie with some of the assorted tasks?
I did.
So directing your attention first to November 8th of 2020, did you respond to a call about a body being found in the Little Petey River?
I did.
And Your Honor, may I put Exhibit 51 up again? It's been admitted and published. Were you familiar with that area prior to responding there?
I was.
Can you describe that area?
Yep. So Pitt's Landing is on Highway 378. It's as you're exiting Conway. It's like one of the last things in the county before you get into Marion County. It's a boat landing. It's a dirt lot surrounded by trees, and then you have the river.
Is that an accurate representation of that area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What did you see when you got there?
When I first got there were patrol vehicles, and I believe some fire personnel were on scene.
Were there any civilians there as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And Captain Wilson testified about the kind of county boundary that runs through the river. Did that present any sort of unique jurisdictional issues?
Yes, ma'am. For us to investigate it, it would have to be within our jurisdiction. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When had Mr. Rice's remains been removed from the river when you got there?
No, ma'am.
Were you there when they were eventually removed?
I was.
Okay. What's going through your mind at this point?
So we were having to, once I got there, I had to wait on Marion County crime scene, and the fire department was sending out their dive team, so it took a little bit of time for all those resources to get there. The prior month, Gregory Rice had been reported missing, and I know through some of the investigation we had obtained some cell phone records for people close to him. So while I was waiting on them, I looked at a program called Cellhawk to see if any records showed anybody out that way near the boat landing during that prior month. There was one record that showed Christopher Dontell out there a day or two after Gregory Rice had been reported missing.
So did that lead you to believe anything in particular? Or?
That it's not very often you find a body dumped in a river. So led me to believe it could possibly be Gregory Rice.
And I may have asked you this before, but did you remain on scene as the body was removed from the river?
I did.
Okay. Can you describe what you saw when the fire rescue boat got back with his remains?
So when the fire rescue brought the body back in, there was a tarp that was secured on each end with zip ties. There was a ratchet strap attached to it with one cinder block attached to the ratchet strap. The body was in a very advanced state of decomposition and could not identify him just by looking at him.
Trying to find another. Honestly, I don't feel like carrying the cinder block again, so I'm going to approach with State's Exhibit 149, which I believe has been admitted without objection. Does that look to be a photo of the cinder block that was recovered?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, made that one published?
Yes.
Did you notice anything unusual about the cinder block?
It's not a cinder block you typically see. It's, I'm pretty sure everybody can picture a cinder block in their head. This one, if you turned it sideways, it had little tiny slots in it instead of a big open square. Kind of stood out.
Showing, if I can republish, State's Exhibit 54. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
And Captain Wilson identified the tarp and the zip ties. Were you there when, and you can see the ratchet strap in that photo, were you there when that was recovered?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, I don't believe there's any objection to the admission of State's Exhibit 126.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibit 126, admitted into evidence without objection.
Is that the ratchet strap?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would ask that this be published to the jury.
All right.
When Mr. Rice's remains were removed from the tarp, did anything catch your attention as being significant to him?
Yes, ma'am. So we had a Facebook photo of Gregory. He's wearing a black ball cap with the comic book Punisher logo on it. He's also wearing a Village Surf Shop t-shirt, and we had been told he liked to smoke Marlboro Reds. This person had a pack of those in his pocket. He was also wearing, he was described to always buy cheap shoes from Walmart. It's just what he liked to wear, and that's what this person was wearing.
Okay. Now, let me go back to the tarp. It's wrapped up in a nice biohazard kit. Were you able to look at the tarp from State's Exhibit 55, which has already been admitted and published?
Yep.
Was there anything in particular about the tarp that you were able to use as an investigative lead to find out where it had been purchased?
Yes, ma'am. The brand on it led us to look at Lowe's home improvement stores.
Were you looking just for the tarp, or were you looking for other items like the ratchet strap, the zip tie, the cinder block?
No, we were looking for somebody that might have purchased all those items together.
Were you able to find any evidence of a transaction where all of those items were purchased together?
We were
And where had that purchase been made?
the Lowe's home improvement store on Seaboard Street.
Who did you speak to when you went to the Lowe's home improvement store?
Loss prevention employee named Robert McKnight.
And I'm approaching with, Your Honor, these have been admitted without objection. So that's States 59. Oops. Bless you.
Bless you.
60 and 61.
Yes, ma'am.
Are those items that you received from Mr. McKnight?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would ask that 59, 60, and 61 be published to the jury.
All right.
Start with 59. You probably did. And what is depicted in State's Exhibit 59?
It's tarp, ratchet strap, zip ties, and cinder blocks.
So newer ones, right? Not the ones.
Yeah, these are just like stock images from Lowe's.
I'm sorry.
It's like a stock image from Lowe's.
And showing you State's Exhibit 60. Put that up. What is depicted in Exhibit 60?
That would be a transaction receipt for the items purchased on October 3rd, 2020.
Okay, and does that also have a timestamp on it?
Yep, so it says 14:54 hours, which would be 2:54 p.m.
And then if we could bring up Exhibit 61. What is depicted in Exhibit 61?
That would be Christopher Dontell with the items in his shopping cart.
Your Honor, I'm approaching with Exhibits 62 and 63. I believe there will not be an objection, but Detective Edwards, you recognize State's Exhibits 62 and 63.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you recognize them to be?
Surveillance video, and I think it's both surveillance video.
Is one from the point of sale and one from the parking lot?
Yeah.
Are those both from the Lowe's improvement?
Yes, ma'am, on Seaboard Street.
And how do you recognize them?
I signed them.
And did you review them as well?
Yes, ma'am.
So, did the stills depicted in Exhibit 61 appear to come from the point of sale surveillance video?
They do.
And you said that you reviewed the parking lot surveillance video.
Yes, ma'am.
What, if anything, did you see that would be relevant to this case in the parking lot surveillance video?
After Dontell purchased the items, he took them outside and placed them into his county-issued Ford Explorer.
Okay. Probably should have asked this before, but were you familiar with Christopher Dontell prior to this investigation?
I was.
How?
From working violent crimes, we deal with coroner's office, unfortunately, pretty frequently, and I had worked cases with them before.
Were you familiar with the defendant?
I was.
And how?
She comes to pick the people up whenever they pass away.
Of course it will. Nothing further at this time. If you'd answer any questions from Mr. Preston Britton.
Yes, ma'am.
Cross-examination.
Thank you for being here.
No.
Just a couple questions, really.
Yes, sir.
The Cellhawk stuff, did you do that? How did you get the Cellhawk app?
I just logged into the website.
Okay, you weren't involved in any kind of extraction for phones?
No, Cellhawk would be like cellular CDR records. It wouldn't be like an actual download of a phone.
It's not download, it's a.
It's like call detail records.
Call detail
Somebody had,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Maybe out of just curiosity, but these cigarettes in his pocket, I mean, they've been in the water for 30 days. I mean,
Well, it was a pack. I didn't like open the pack of cigarettes.
was a sealed pack?
I don't remember if it was sealed or not.
And just wanted to confirm on that receipt, we did have a Pepsi.
Pepsi Zero.
Pepsi.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Read right?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down.
May we approach on scheduling, Your Honor?
Yes.
Oh, Your Honor, may Detective Edwards be released from his subpoena?
No objection, Your Honor. I agree with that. Thank you. Gentlemen, the attorneys have advised me this is a good break. Let's go ahead and break for the day. Leave your notepads in the jury box. I ask that you please be back again at 9:15 tomorrow morning. Again, do not discuss the case with anyone. Don't conduct any independent investigations. Don't watch any news reports. If anything big happens, I'll let you know. I hope everybody has a good evening, and we'll see you back at 9:15 tomorrow. Thank you very much.